Welcome, lovers. I don't know what I'm doing, but you probably already knew that. And today I decided I wanted to talk about my experience with getting my ears pierced. This is also a video about why I don't get piercings. Obviously, I'm going to start with I don't care if you have piercings or if you don't have piercings or if you like them or if you don't like them. This is not to judge people who do like piercings. It's just why I personally don't do piercings. It's no shade. Since a lot of what I'm going to be talking about is my experience when I did get piercings, which was only in my ears, I'm going to start off with talking about why I don't get anything else pierced. First of all, I don't re-pierce my ears for the sake of the fact that I play with my ears all the time. I have since I was an infant. It's a habit I've always had. Sometimes it's a thinking habit, sometimes it's a calming habit, sometimes it's it feels weird between my fingers and I feel like doing it habit. It's one of those things that just kind of encompasses a lot of my life without me realizing it until recently. But if I have a piercing in my ears, I can't play with my ears and it drives me nuts. So that's like one of my main reasons for not re-piercing my ears. I have thought on a multitude of occasions of getting other piercings. Usually it'll be like, oh, what if I got like a lip piercing or a nose ring or something like that. But every time I think about getting a piercing anywhere outside of my ear, my brain immediately thinks of all the reasons that would be a terrible idea. Like the first piercings outside of my ears I ever thought about getting was lip piercings, because they're kind of cool and interesting and I guess fashionable, I don't know. But as soon as I thought about that, my brain was like, I have a tendency to bite my lips a lot, like all the time. That would probably really hinder the healing situation after getting one. And then my brain went to the whole, well, if I get it and it's not the right kind, it'll scrape and push against my teeth and it'll fuck up my teeth. And even if I don't do that, it'll probably still end up fucking up my teeth. And then after that, my brain was like, well, what about eating? You're going to have to get used to eating with a thing sticking out of your mouth all the time, and then you're going to bite it and it's going to hurt, and then that's going to cause problems. Also, it could get infected. And then my brain was like, well, also when you're eating, food's probably going to get caught in it, and then you're going to have to clean it, and then it'll be really fucking gross. So my brain just kind of goes down that whole tangent rabbit hole of why it's a bad idea. Did that with the lip piercing, did that with the nose piercing, and anywhere else on my body I wouldn't want to pierce anyway, because I don't want to get a belly button piercing because, first of all, I don't like belly button piercings. They're just not interesting to me. But also, if I ever end up having another kid, then ow. Because when your tongue stretches out, your skin stretches. That doesn't sound like a good idea to me. And the only other place that would make sense to me that people would get pierced is like here, and that's a bad idea for all kinds of reasons, at least to me, especially because if it's done wrong, then tear ducts. So that's why you're probably never going to see me with piercings outside of like the rare occasion where I'll actually use these. Now let's get into the main topic of this video. My terrible experiences. So back when I was probably about 8 or 9, I might have been 10, I don't know, there's like that 3-year range of it just kind of squishes together. Somewhere between there, I think, is when I got my ears pierced. So growing up in my mom's dance studio, I started doing dance team at a fairly young age. And when you do dance team, you have, uniform costume specifications, and most of them involved earrings, a certain type of earring usually. But me and a few other people used clip-ons for a really long time because, we didn't have pierced ears. And at some point, I got really tired of that because those things fucking hurt to wear. They are so uncomfortable, and I hated them so much. And I was like, you know what? All the women I know have their ears pierced. It's probably going to happen eventually, so I might as well just do it now and, save myself the misery of wearing clips for any longer. So we went to Claire's. Please don't come for me. I was a child. My parents didn't know any better at the time. It was back when people didn't know it was better to go to like an actual body piercer tattoo shop place. So we didn't know at the time. So we went to Claire's. And the first problem with that is that they use the stupid gun. You know that little piercing gun thing where they just stick the little earring in there and it goes poof, and just shoves it right through. It's not actually sharp. It's just the actual jewelry. It's so... There's so many problems with the guns. They're not sanitary because there's no way to actually fully clean them. They break all the time. Half the time they don't actually work all the way. They don't use a real needle, so they don't create a hole. Like, they don't actually remove skin to create a hole to put the jewelry into, which is what you're supposed to do. Otherwise, problems, then your skin's trying to heal, but there's something blocking the space that, it's trying to heal into. There's so many problems. Ooh. But again, at the time, we didn't know that. So little me and my mom and probably my sister or somebody goes in to get my ears pierced with the basic little gem that we use for competitions. And it's just like, hey, we're going to pierce my ears. All right, okay, cool. I sit down in the chair and they go to clean off my ears. It's fine, but even as a kid, I thought it was weird that when they went to clean my ears, they didn't have gloves on, But I was also a very, at the time, trusting kid, so I was like, oh, I'm probably wrong. It probably doesn't matter. It matters. It matters. So much. It matters. If you're going to pierce somebody, please, for the love of God, wash your hands, wear gloves, sanitize the skin, and use the proper tools. Anyways, they go to do it, and they're like, you know what, we're going to do both at the same time, because I was young. They didn't want to elongate the situation, so like, we're going to do them both at the same time. So 2 piercers just put a gun to both my ears after marking it with a regular ass marker. And we're just like 1, 2, 3, click. And first of all, it hurt really bad. Just the regular one, which was this side. But what hurt worse was that the gun broke on this side. When they went to do it, they clicked it, and the gun just went it totally just broke. The whole thing broke. So the jewelry that, again, was not sharp and was blunt now went halfway into my ear and up. So it actually poked my cartilage. And it hurt real bad. As you can imagine, I cried a lot, and there was a lot of blood, which just freaked me out more, so I cried more. And they were like, oh, it's okay, you're fine. And I was like, no, the fuck, I'm not. But, they were cleaning off. My mom was trying to comfort me because, mother. And she was like, you're doing so good, it's almost over. And, because it did that, and this one was already pierced, they decided we're just going to take it out, clean it off a little, and then use the non-broken gun and do it again. I would have rather just taken the other one out. But that's what they did. They cleaned it painfully. I don't think they were being careful about it because it just felt like they were just tugging on it. And I got extra upset about that. And then they took the other gun and they loaded it up and they pierced it, went all the way through this time. And it still kept bleeding for a little bit, but finally stopped after a while, and it was just terrible. And this is just the start of everything. So the ladies were like, oh my gosh, good job, you did it, you're so tough. Oh, what they're supposed to do to try and make a kid feel better after a terrible experience, and in an attempt to not, get in trouble for the fact that the gun broke. And obviously, being sensible, my mom was like, it's not your fault that the thing broke. Honestly, it's not their fault that they don't know how to properly do it either. The people who employ them are supposed to teach them, so I don't blame the workers. So, I thought it was over. I was like, it's over, it's done, it's there now. And I kept up with the whole cleaning situation. I cleaned my ears every day. I left them in for long enough that I didn't have to worry about it closing up. But they didn't teach us about rejecting, which is something that I really wish they had, because about 2 or 3 days after, my ears started swelling and getting red and hurting a lot and pussing. And I figured, I probably just have an infection because I didn't clean it enough. No, it was rejecting. And I just didn't know what that was at the time. So my earrings were rejecting. Later we found out that it was Well, it was probably because of the whole situation, but one of the reasons was because I was allergic to the particular kind of cheap metal that they used. Again, not blaming the workers for, like, what kind of jewelry they have or anything. That's just, it was Claire's. So eventually, when they'd been in for long enough that I could take them out without worrying about them closing up, I cleaned them really thoroughly, like I had been doing consistently, because, I kept getting, like, buildup of stuff because it was either infected or rejecting or both, and honestly it was probably both. But then I got some earrings that my mom had gotten for me that were actually, like, silver. So I stuck them in, which, by the way, hurt, because on this side, like, it went straight through, but it was really swollen, so it was really hard to get it to go through. And on this side, I couldn't find the back hole, so I was, like, poking around the inside of my ear trying to find the back hole. But I finally got this in, and I was like, great, it's probably gonna do better now, because we figured out I was allergic to the other material. I was like, awesome, I'm probably gonna be fine now. I was not. I stopped consistently wearing earrings pretty much immediately after that. I only ever wore them when I had to, because it was painful, it was hard to get the things through, because regardless of how long I kept them in, it kept closing up. Not like entirely closing up, but because there was no skin removed to allow room for, the jewelry, it pretty much closes back almost completely. So every time I did have to stick them in, I'd have to re-poke the back skin, which was never fun, but So I spent the rest of, all the way until senior year of high school, anytime I wore earrings, it was just because of either a special event or because I had a competition. And every time I'd get the same result. Took a while to get it in, took a while to get it all the way through, and by the time I took it out, even if it was only a couple of hours later, my ears were throbbing. I tried to still regularly clean my ears because, I knew the piercing holes were still there. It didn't help. I still got infections all the time. No matter what I did, I just always seemed to get infections where my piercings were. And for a while, it was a majority on the side that was really messed up when they first pierced it, but after a while, both sides just constantly having issues. After I stopped going to competitions and stuff like that, and I stopped wearing earrings altogether, it eventually got better. I don't get those problems as much as I used to. I will still occasionally get them, like I'll occasionally go to touch this part of my ear, and how you can kind of squeeze it and feel the straight line through between your fingers where the piercing was? If I do that, I'll feel like a bump in the middle, and that's how I know there's like pus in there. And that happens like once in a blue moon now, but I had to stop wearing earrings altogether to get it to not be constant. And I don't have a very big complaint with that because of my habit of playing with my ears, but it's still really frustrating. And I have debated a couple of times going to an actual body piercer's to get it redone, so that if I ever feel like wearing earrings, I can and not have to worry about the constant infections. But I kind of don't know if it's worth it at this point. Not because I think it's going to have the same result, but because I think I don't wear earrings enough to make paying for that worth it anymore. Now, I think around when I was either a senior in high school or a freshman in college, it was between the end of that and somewhere between the first semester of starting college is when I got another piercing. And that piercing was right here. I had thought it was really interesting and really cool, and I was like, oh, maybe I should get one. And then my sister was like, you totally should, and encouraged me a whole bunch, and I was like, all right, why not? And by this point, I should have thought to research where to go before going. This part's on me. Because I didn't think to research where a good place to go to get another piercing would have been. So we ended up going back to Claire's. You can scream at me now because I didn't do the research I should have. But we went over there. Again, they used a gun. Thankfully, they at least wore gloves this time. But I got this section up here pierced. It was interesting. It definitely did get as infected as my other ones did, and pretty much as consistently. but like I really liked the way it looked, and it only occasionally blocked my ability to play with my ears, because most of the time I'll play with the bottom or like push in right here and make that little clicky noise in the inside of my head, which probably doesn't make sense for people who don't play with their ears. But there are times when I like to play with this part of my ear, and that's the only time it ever like interfered with that, and I was like, I can probably live with this. So I had it for a good while, still had a lot of issues, but I eventually found out, because it was only in there for so many months, like I was still a freshman in high school when it fell out. But I found out eventually that the earring that they used wasn't long enough. Like, I already realized it was kind of short whenever I put the back on, and I couldn't feel the back of it actually go through it. But one night while I was sleeping, it just kind of, the back came off and it fell out. And then by the time I woke up the next day, not only could I not find the piece of jewelry, but it had completely closed up. And I was not about to try to force it through there. So I was disappointed about the fact that we paid to have that done, and then it just came out anyway. But I went to the bathroom after that, and I went to like examine it, and I realized there's this weird little bump on the back of my ear. Like, I have no idea if you'll be able to see this, but I'm gonna try. There's this little bump right there. I don't know if you can see it. You probably can't. I'm not gonna edit it out regardless, but there's a little bump in my skin that is now permanent. Because it swelled up so much, it left like a permanent change in my skin and my cartilage. And I thought it was a pimple at first, so I tried to pop it, which hurt because, you know, it's not a pimple. But I eventually figured out that that's just the way that my skin is now, and I'm kind of upset about it. But I don't think there's anything I really do to fix it that doesn't involve unnecessary amounts of money. Eventually, I realized that I should have done research, and I learned a lot more about piercings and stuff like that, especially once I really got into the whole tattoo scene, which, like, I'm still surprised I didn't think to do the research in the first place, because I did literal years of research before getting my first tattoo, so you would think, you know. But that's, you know, my terrible experiences with getting pierced at Claire's, and reasons why I'm not going to get any more piercings, so I hope you like this video. If you didn't, that's perfectly okay and perfectly understandable, but I hope I'll see you in the next video anyway. So until then, I hope your day or night is just as lovely as you are. Bye-bye. Are you a tattoo? Because I want you on me.